Hello. These are just some thoughts that I have regarding the Sasquatch evidence as it relates to the scientific establishment. What do we have that constitutes evidence of the Sasquatch and of its existence? Well, I would say that we have a lot of footprint casts, some with the dermal ridges, which have been examined by latent fingerprint experts such as Jimmy Chilcutt, and no flaw has been found in any of them. You've also had the footprints with the mid-tarsal break or the pressure ridge, cast by Bob Titmus. That was the Patterson-Gimlin film. And there have been others that have had the mid-tarsal break in them as well. And also you've had some footprints that they may not have had dermal ridges or may not have had the dynamic features of mid-tarsal break, but they had interesting features that convinced anthropologists and anatomists such as Dr. Jeff Meldrum that there appeared to be something credible there. And of course you have the famous Bossberg footprints with the crippled individual, and that's been examined by a forensic orthopedic surgeon, and he found I forget what injury he called it. I would have to watch the Monster Quest critical evidence episode again. The List Frank injury. That's what he called it. The List Frank injury. That was it. Which is a bit of a distortion of the foot, a bit of a bending, a very, very crooked, distorted. Possibly if it was born that way, or it got its foot caught in a trap or something like that, it was trying to release itself. We've got those footprints. We've got some strange hair samples that have come back unknown primate. The recent National Geographic special, the one on American Paranormal Bigfoot, talked about some of the newer hairs that have been collected thanks to an interesting method devised by John Meinzinski and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, where they take a wire and they hang it high above the trees, and then they take a barbed wire and hang it down and put a pheromone chip up where a Sasquatch, ostensibly, can perhaps be attracted by it and reach for it. And they've retrieved hairs that way. Strange hairs. They haven't been able to amplify DNA from them just yet, but they have found hairs. Also, you've had strange fecal matter, which seems to come back unknown animal, and really all that tells you is what it ate. Of course, the hallmark of the of Sasquatch, supposed Sasquatch droppings, is the rather large size. Of course, some have joked that that's the reason you hear all those screams in the woods, because of fecal matter that's about that thick. That's about that big around and about this long. And like I said, some have joked that that's the reason you see, you hear the strange screams in the woods. We've also had supposed vocalizations, supposedly of Sasquatch, which have surfaced over the years. But of course, one thing to always remember, as Don Keating has said, you don't know, you can't identify positively what kind of an animal made a sound unless you see the creature open its mouth. We've also had from Snellgrove Lake, we had the blood and hair and tissue samples collected from that screw board. Unfortunately, I mean, originally when that DNA was amplified, it was found to have mostly human DNA except for one nucleotide polymorphism of chimpanzee DNA. But then that same DNA was retested a year later and they found that it was just too old and too degraded to really do anything with and really determine anything with. So we were pretty much back to square one. And of course we have the various films and photographs and videos and things of that nature. In my mind, the only one that really seems to hold together is the Patterson-Gimlin film, the PG film. That's the only one that really seems to hold together over the years. It has not been conclusively debunked. Of course, there are those who say, well, then again, maybe it hasn't been debunked yet, but then again, it hasn't been established that it's a real Sasquatch. It's the closest thing we have to quote-unquote proof. It's evidence, but it's not proof. The final proof, of course, would be a body or a piece of the body. As Thomas Steenberg always says, what the scientific establishment needs is a body or a piece of the body. Nothing else will do. That's kind of echoing the late Grover Krantz as well. That was also Krantz's position. What we need is a body or the piece of the body. Nothing else will do. Photographic evidence won't cut it. DNA, hair samples, blood samples, tissue samples, that won't cut it, because those things can be contaminated by human factors. So therefore, what is needed is a body or a piece of the body. Now, I myself, I would never go out and actively kill or shoot a Sasquatch. I would never do that. There are those who, that is their mission, to bring in absolute proof, absolute, undisputable proof that there is a Sasquatch. I would not get angry if somebody did shoot and kill a Sasquatch and bring it in as the absolute proof of its existence. I'm no kill, however. That does seem to be a bit of a contradiction, but trust me, it's not. Because I acknowledge that, yes, a body is needed. And it's been needed for over half a century. Unfortunately, we don't have it yet. I'm hoping we will get a body at some point. Hopefully within my lifetime, at any rate. Because, and I have to agree, the best photographic evidence isn't going to cut it. The best film, video, whatever is not going to cut it. The Patterson-Gimlin film, still a hotly debated subject. A subject of controversy. So, the Patterson-Gimlin film, a lot of people probably thought that it was going to solve the mystery in 1967, and it didn't. Bigfooters and Sasquatch researchers, they still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. What is needed, what I'm hoping, and this may sound a bit grisly, but I'm hoping that perhaps maybe a logging truck will hit one, and then that'll be the absolute, proof right there, and nobody will have to kill one. Or perhaps maybe some remains will be found. Interestingly enough, there have been strange bones that have been found in the woods over the years. Robert Alley wrote about several cases in his book Raincoast Sasquatch. And Alan Berry wrote about a case of a strange skull cap that was kicked up by a mule in 1965. A strange skull cap which nobody could identify, and which was pretty much put away in somebody's skeleton collection and has not been retrieved. So there may very well be a body, parts of skeletons and skulls of Sasquatches in museum collections or in a scientist's personal collection, and they just didn't know what they were dealing with. That would also be preferable to going out and shooting a Sasquatch. But I think as far as, we've got evidence, we've got all sorts of evidence, but we don't have proof. And that's what we need. We need proof. I mean, unfortunately, that will require a body. I don't like to say that, but that's what it's going to require. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts on the Sasquatch community and the scientific establishment as relates to evidence. Thank you.